Welcome to the Movies of the Damn podcast. My name is Kyle Grant, and I'm sitting here with my friend and published horror author, John Hunt. If you enjoy what you hear here today, please check out our Facebook page and follow us on both Instagram and Twitter, at Damned Movies. Email us any questions, comments, and suggestions to moviesofthedamned@gmail.com. For further details on John's published works, please visit his blog, johnhuntfiction.wordpress.com. Today, we'll be discussing Jonathan Demme's 1991 film, Silence of the Lambs. The movie focuses on FBI agent in training Clarice Starling, played by Jodie Foster. As the FBI deals with hunting down serial killer Buffalo Bill, who kills young women and removes their skin, Clarice is tasked to assist by interviewing Dr. Hannibal Lecter, played by Anthony Hopkins, a brilliant psychiatrist serving life in jail for murder and cannibalism. It's believed that Lecter may have insight into the case. A psychological game of cat and mouse then ensues as Clarice races against the clock to find clues to prevent another murder. Clarice eventually is able to locate Buffalo Bill, killing him, but not before Lecter orchestrates an escape from prison. First of all, Ethan, appreciate you helping us out, being on the podcast again today. Really interested in seeing what you have to say here. John, opening thoughts on the movie?
Yes, this is one of those classics that if you enjoy horror or if you just enjoy crime thrillers,
Or good movies.
or a good movie, you have seen this movie. And if you haven't, you should probably go watch it immediately. It's influenced many films, it's influenced many books, it's just influenced a lot. And it's well worth the time you invest in watching it.
Yeah, like, where do you even start with something like this? This is one of those movies that is going to be on those lists, the top 100 films of all time. It's going to be there forever. Like, it's going to be difficult to ever kick something like this off of there, just based on everything you said, from how influential it was to how well it was acted to how well it was written. There's just so many good things about this movie. It's almost tough to even find a spot to begin.
Yes. So, that being said, let's start at the beginning. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's a good spot, and I actually made note of that. The opening scene, and it's tough to even call this the opening scene because it was when those opening credits are rolling, and with a lot of movies, that is usually just wasted space, wasted screen time. But for this one, when the opening credits were rolling, you see kind of Clarice, Jodie Foster's training at the FBI Academy, I want to call it, and just all the crazy physical feats she was doing, kind of climbing up the rope, going over those walls. To me, this was very important to the movie because it helped cement right away how strong of a female figure she was right from the very, very beginning. I don't know if you agree with that, Ethan, or not.
I do 100% agree with it. I wanted to say something else kind of along those lines.
Yeah, of course.
Jonathan Demme used a lot of blocking to show Clarice's disadvantage in shots. So when she's going to meet with Jack Crawford, she stands in an elevator, and there's 5 other men in there, and they're all way taller than her. Men talk down to her sexually, especially Chilton, the Psychiatric Institute. He sees her as nothing more than she's like Jack sent her there to entice Hannibal. That's all you can see in her. And
yeah, she's like bait or something like that.
And especially that when she goes to West Virginia to look at the dead body, and all the men are it's a POV shot, and it's just tracking around of all the men staring and looking down at her, which is almost kind of symbolic of how they feel.
Oh, when she's in the room with all those police officers.
Yeah, and he does this throughout to show her disadvantage and to show how strong she is to overcome that. And how strong she is in general and how smart and all this stuff. Like, it's very, very well done.
Yeah. No, they represented her character really well, of constantly showing that, like, she was disadvantaged. People looked down on her. She was fighting an uphill battle. But again, just that opening scene showing how strong she was really did a good job to build up her character.
I think we're missing a point with that opening scene, I think. So normally when you do your training, as you saw when she was running back to meet Jack Crawford, you do it in a group. You do it in group training. She was doing this on her own time to get better because she was running solo. She was doing the course to get better. That is a great indication of her character, right? And her determination. And all it took was just to have her running through the woods alone. That was it. Such a simple shot, but such character development in that easy that easy opening sequence.
Yeah, opening sequence where it was just the opening credits, right?
Exactly. The credits were still rolling up.
Yeah, which usually for most films, nothing's happening. Maybe they're showing
Yeah.
some landscape or something like that, right?
So and then let's look into the background of this film in general. Okay, so you have Jack Crawford. He's based on a real character.
Yep.
On a real person. You ever read the book Mindhunter?
I haven't read it, but I know the book you're talking about, and it is also a series on Netflix now.
Yeah, I binged watched the one on Netflix.
I've heard it's great. It's just, as you know, there's so many good TV shows out there now. It's tough to find hours in the day.
Yes, and I read the book probably 3-4 times first before it
wow.
even came up, right? So it's based on a real person, and these are real things that they were doing. They were actually going out to visiting these Ed Kemper, like this stuff actually happened. So it's excellent. And then you have all the serial killer, Buffalo Bill himself, right? You have him. He's based off of Ed Gein, who was also used as a model for Psycho, right? And then you also have he's also based off of the opening, how he abducts the senator's daughter, Mouthman.
Wearing the cast.
Yeah, that's a Ted Bundy trick, right?
Yep.
Like there's a lot of stuff going on here that was incorporated, and and the genius of it was so well done. And then you look at Hannibal Lecter himself, right? How they turn the person they want to profile into the profiler to catch another serial killer. It's just there's so many layers of cleverness to this, and that was based upon real life people and real life events, but incorporated into such a way that it became wonderful fiction.
Yeah, because as you just said, Buffalo Bill was kind of he's based on the reading I did from like 3 different serial killers. So as you just said, wearing the cast when he abducted the females, to killing them and wearing a skin, to keeping them in a pit in his house. Those were kind of like the 3 different serial killers that morphed into this absolutely wild, crazy character that was terrifying. I remember the first time I saw this film, and it's been years ago, but I was absolutely terrified watching it just based on how wild of a character not only Buffalo Bill was, but also Hannibal Lecter. There's a lot to this movie, right?
Hannibal Lecter, fantastic as always. Anthony Hopkins does a great job, and the directing for it was fantastic. But so one thing that you may have not have noticed is that he never blinks. Hannibal Lecter doesn't blink once in the movie.
And so I didn't know that was for the entire movie, but I remember watching one scene where he felt like he was like staring into Clarice's soul, and I'm like, wow, this is a really cool scene.
Yeah.
I haven't seen him blink, but I didn't realize that was for the entire movie. That's
He
crazy.
Doesn't blink once. I think I read somewhere, I'm not sure if it's true because it felt longer, but he's only in it for 16 minutes. That's what I read.
Seriously?
Yeah, I think so. It might have been a little longer. I have to check my source on that, but yeah.
You know what? I could see that now that you mention it, but I would have never thought that.
Exactly. And so Demme does a lot of great things when shooting Hannibal Lecter's scene. So for instance, his cell is different than the other prisoners' cells. It's glass, and it's funny because the other prisoners, they have bar cells and they seem way crazier than Lecter, but it emphasizes his danger because of how smart he is, and also because of the difference in the glass. And he also keeps tight on Lecter's face. A lot of the shots are really close-ups because that increases tension and between Lecter and Clarice. It's excellent. Everything about this movie is excellent.
Very well filmed, and obviously this is a classic. The critics agree. Rotten Tomatoes 96. Rotten Tomatoes, that's the critic score. Audience score 95. This thing absolutely killed it at the box office. Budget of $19 million, brought in over $272 million. Spawned a sequel, 2 prequels, and the thing that I thought was most impressive was how well it did at the Oscars. So it won what they call the Big Five. So what that is that's Best Picture, Directing, Lead Actor, Lead Actress, and a Writing category. This is only the 3rd movie ever to do that. And so the first 2, one came out in 1934, It Happened One Night, and then in 1975, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And this was actually the last movie ever to have won the Big Five. No movie since then has done that. And so Ethan, if what you're saying is true, that Anthony Hopkins only had 16 minutes of screen time. That's wild that he got the best actor win for that. But now that you're saying it, I believe it. But it just shows how great of a job he did.
Well, exactly. He leaves a resonance with you when you watch it because he's so creepy.
Yeah, he does.
And also, he kind of propels a lot of the plot because of what he says to Clarice. The rest of the movie happens with her catching Buffalo Bill and Jack Crawford trusting her more, right? So he's a key factor in it, and the acting and the directing and just how important he is and how everyone builds up to him makes him seem huge.
No, I'd agree with that. John, all those accolades I just mentioned, are you with the critics here? Are you at 96?
I would say I'm actually higher. Like I love this film. I think we're underrating Jack Crawford's manipulation in this film. So we're talking about how Hannibal was manipulating Clarice and manipulating and driving the whole plot progression forward. But we got to remember, Jack Crawford sent Clarice there.
Yep.
Right? He sent Clarice there. So what do you think he was actually after? Was he after a profile of Hannibal, or was he after a profile of Buffalo Bill?
Well, they were, in my opinion, they were doing anything they could to catch Buffalo Bill.
Yes. So it's at the time that Buffalo Bill was active. So that's when he decided the first time he decides to send Clarice there. The clever thing about it is that Hannibal knew he was being manipulated, and he couldn't help it. He couldn't help. He was so drawn to Clarice. And so that makes you...
Was he being manipulated, though?
Absolutely.
He got what he wanted.
Yeah, but did he, though? He never talked to anyone else. Wouldn't submit to any tool, wouldn't submit to any examination from anyone. Anyone. He sends Clarice there, and within minutes, he's talking to her and asking her questions. He wants to know more about her.
He saw her as a means to escape. He saw this situation as a means to escape.
I don't think he saw that far into the future. I do not think that at all, because the only time that he was to be transferred was after that deal became in the first place. He never mentioned the deal. He only ever said at the very beginning that he would like to have a view. Yeah. That was all he ever said. He never set up anything like that. I would not say that he was seeing that far into the future. What I would say was that Jack Crawford knew, because he knew Clarice and he was dealing with Clarice, and he actually knew Hannibal Lecter better than Hannibal thought he did, that sending Clarice there would be one to open up Lecter. And it did.
Okay, so then you're really liking that you thought that Jack Crawford here might be the master manipulator of everyone, or he just set the wheels in motion?
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that everyone's so focused on Hannibal, right, about what he did and how he got everyone moving forward, that we're forgetting who initiated it all, who got the ball rolling. And then what do you got to think? What was he anticipating? What was Jack Crawford anticipating by sending Clarice there? Why did he send that junior person? Why did he pick her? There was a reason for that. And that reason was because he knew Hannibal would not be able to stop himself from communicating with her.
Very interesting.
I think that's the way it was, and I think otherwise you would send. Why wouldn't he send the other girl? No. Why wouldn't he send anyone? Like he chose Clarice for that reason. At the same time that Buffalo Bill was active, anticipating that Hannibal would give them information, and he did. So I think we're underrating Jack Crawford's influence in this whole film.
And that's a really interesting point. Just speaking of Jack Crawford, while we're on the subject, the actor who was originally slated to play him, Gene Hackman. Gene Hackman was actually instrumental, in getting this thing going. He got on board first before anyone else, and he was actually part of financing this project. But then as soon as the script started to get written and he saw how violent he was, he pulled himself out completely and wanted nothing to do with the movie anymore. And I can kind of see that, because for a movie that came out we're talking almost 30 years ago now, it was a pretty violent thing. A lot of like obscene kind of sexual references and things like that. So I could see why Gene Hackman might think to himself, I don't know if I want my name attached to this, which in retrospect was a terrible idea. But at the time I could almost see where he's coming from.
Yeah, but he would have read the book and knew how gross it was, right? So why would he want to get involved if he knew how disgusting the novel was?
Have to ask him. All I can report back to is kind of what I was reading online there, and it said it was due to how kind of violent the script was coming together, which he kind of pulled out. Maybe he assumed it was going to be kind of played down a little bit. It wasn't going to be as violent as it came out to be. I don't know.
I wouldn't even say it was that violent. It was more disturbing what you saw.
Yeah,
Because when I think violence, I think like Kill Bill, like cutting up people and showing the act of the thing. It was more disturbing. And
I guess it's tough to put ourselves back in a 1991 mindset, right?
Well, I wouldn't have been born for 9 years, but yeah.
There you go, right? And so, but do you see what I'm saying there, John, as far as why Gene Hackman decided to pull himself out of this project?
Well, you look at what movies Gene Hackman has been in, and that totally makes sense. Totally makes sense, type of movies that he chose to act in, and how he, it's definitely a Gene Hackman move. But once again, like he financed this without reading the script. I don't know Gene Hackman, so I'm not going to comment on what his thought process was, right?
Yeah.
I have no idea. I would say definitely violent for 1991 standards, I would say, to a certain degree, right? So you're looking at the movies that would have been a mainstream movie, right? So there's other horror movies out around that time that were way more brutal, right? But they wouldn't have been considered mainstream, So, there's definitely different shades of violence when it comes to this. But this was more, it was dark in a way that other movies weren't.
Yeah, and maybe what Ethan said before about disturbing.
Yes.
It is something, and maybe it was how disturbing it was that went in hand with the violence. But like, even the one scene where like, I can't even tell you how many times I've seen this movie, multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
But even when Buffalo Bill is kind of staring down the pit and he's doing his famous line of, "It rubs the lotion on the skin or else it gets the hose again."
Yeah.
Like, that gives me shivers. Like, I get goosebumps just repeating that line. Like, it's like cinematic gold right there. Like that writing. Like, I don't know if that line does the same thing to you. I'm not sure.
Well, I knew why they were doing that line, and I understand it's part of the plot progression. It makes sense. It's what they do, and they addressed it later on in the film, right? When the senator was trying to talk to Buffalo Bill and kept repeating her name, right? So he calls it because it's not a person. He can destroy something that's not a person.
Yeah.
Right. So I understood that part. That was a really good line. Most of the lines that I love.
But even if he was using a name and it was like, John rubs the lotion on the skin or John gets the hose, like, that would be creepy too.
Well, he was definitely there's no doubt about it. This guy was creepy. He was all sorts of creepy, and I think once again, like, this is another guy. He did a great job. He's been in bit parts afterwards, like in movies, bit parts, like, but a bunch of them, right? But still, like, I thought he did a great job in this film. He was uber creepy. He pulled off that weird dancing scene.
Oh, ridiculous.
He pulled that off, like, you know what I mean? Like,
when he's putting the makeup on, like, that was bizarre.
Yeah. Right, with the music going, and then like he did a great job. There's nothing wrong with the acting in this film, I would say. Like, nothing wrong at all.
One thing I wanted to ask you, and again, this is one of my impossible questions because it would have been so many years since you saw this one there, John.
Mm-hmm.
The first big twist in the movie, and I want to say that there was two major twists in my opinion.
Yeah.
First major twist, Lecter kind of switching himself out with that police officer.
Yes.
Did you see that coming?
So, full disclosure, I read the book before I saw the movie.
Oh, okay.
So I knew it.
So you did know.
I knew it. I didn't know it in, like, it's hard. It's different in a book, right? You can't predict a chapter ahead in the small variations that way. You can predict it. You can predict in a book an overall idea of something. So you see something at the beginning, you're like, okay, well, that guy's the bad guy, and he's going to do this later on. You can do that in a book, but you couldn't be able to say, but he's going to be driving a Honda Accord when he does it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, you can't do that. I don't think you could have done that in this movie because they didn't really set it up that way.
I just remember it blowing me away when I first saw the movie.
It was genius. It was genius.
I thought at that point, Lecter had escaped on his own.
Yeah.
And was just out of there. And I just thought that was legitimately a cop laying there dying.
Yeah.
Like, I had no point did I think he had switched spaces. Now, Ethan, did that catch you off guard, or did you kind of see that coming? Did you have a hint that might be Lecter?
My friend told me that happened before I watched the movie.
Okay, so you knew what was
I knew
going
it
on.
happened.
Okay.
It didn't ruin it. It was still awesome, but I knew it happened, so there was no.
Okay,
Need
so,
to
so then maybe perhaps since John, you read the book already, and Ethan, it sounds like you had things ruined for you a little bit before you saw it. The other major twist I thought, which was kind of filmed, I thought the filming was put together so well, is when you think that the police know where Buffalo Bill is, and I want to call him the SWAT team is descending on the house, just as Clarice is going to do kind of like a do nothing follow up at the house. I didn't realize that was going to be switched as well, where Clarice was actually at Buffalo Bill's house and the SWAT team was at a nothing house. Do you remember that the first time you saw it, or was that ruined for you too, Ethan?
No, I remember that. I remember I was watching it. I don't remember like exactly the first time seeing it, but I know myself, and I know I would have been like sitting up and been like, "What?"
Yeah.
Like I was, it caught me off guard.
I just thought that was put together so well, and even watching it back, the three of us watched it together like buddies there last night, but watching it back for the umpteenth time, I still thought that was put together so well.
It was a phenomenal filming sequence, the way it was all orchestrated that way. But even when I was reading the book, I knew like it's done a different way.
Yeah.
But I knew Clarice would be the one to get him, right? So
that there was going to be that eventual showdown.
Yeah. So I knew either the SWAT team was wrong at the wrong house, or I just knew that they were wrong actually, because I knew Clarice. I didn't know Clarice would be knocking on the door at the same time.
Yeah, perhaps she was knocking on a door that would lead her to a clue to where he was.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Or the SWAT team would get in there and there'd be a clue to bad guy's whereabouts, and they'd get that to Clarice, and Clarice would be the closest one to deal with it. Right? So something like that, where she's against the clock and they're like, hey, don't go there, Clarice. You can't go alone because he has that girl. And she's like, oh, I got to go. Like, something like that, right?
Yeah.
Where she feels compelled to do it. So, but once again, we were talking about this the other day, and we were remember the sequence where Miggs throws some protein at Clarice.
Yeah, disgusting.
Disgusting scene.
Makes me want to throw up.
It's a terrible scene. It's terrible that it was actually like, I think for 91 standards, everyone in the audience would have been like, what the, right?
Yeah.
Because even now when we were watching it last night, we're like, oh my God, that's terrible.
Close to 30 years later.
Yeah. But when we talked about, Hannibal Lecter convinced Miggs, because, his main thing is rudeness, and that was really rude in his eyes, convinced Miggs to swallow his own tongue.
Yeah.
We talked about that, right? So I didn't know it back then. I didn't really know it last night, but I read it in between then that was impossible. You can't swallow your own tongue.
It's impossible to do.
Yes.
Like, okay, could you possibly push the tongue down your throat? Like use an object to push it down your throat?
You could maybe rip your own tongue out and then shove it down your throat. but other than that,
but even with an object, you couldn't push it back into your throat.
You can't. There's a piece of skin in between. It just can't happen.
Okay, so
because a lot of people would die in their sleep if your tongue just flopped back.
So impossibility.
Yeah.
And I bet you they were having issues with, like, how do we get him to kill himself? Because as you know, like, these prisoners, they don't have anything in these cells with them, right?
Yeah.
They talked about how strict the rules were. So that was something that the writers were struggling with.
Well, it's pretty simple. They could just have, like, these guys are a little unbalanced, right? And Hannibal's a complete manipulator.
Yeah.
Just had him run his head into the wall a couple of times.
Oh, yeah. It
would have been pretty simple.
So it sounds like we've reached the point in the podcast where I can bring up some of my issues then.
Well, you're only allowed to have one, so...
well, I got more than one. First one here. They find what they think is Hannibal Lecter on the top of the elevator, and they give him a warning shot in the leg.
Yeah.
Number one, please don't do that. Please don't do warning shots. And number two, that is an unbelievably difficult shot to hit.
Okay, once again, we talked about this. I disagree with you. It wasn't a difficult shot to hit. However, 1991 policing, or whatever year this was in, compared to now policing, totally different. You don't know what they would be doing or what they would be allowed to do, right? This is a serial killer who eats people. You think they couldn't justify to the media that we shot him in the leg? I think that would be. I think it's a non-issue at that point.
Okay,
I do have an issue.
Would you agree that it would be an issue today? You can't
you cannot do that.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Okay,
Could
perfect.
not do that.
And you know what? I'll take your word on it. I can't tell you how police would have worked in 91, so I can't give you an answer on that, but plausible explanation.
Yeah, and but also another my issue though is, remember they were talking about giving Clarice the rules about not going too close, and Dr. Chiltern shows her that picture of the nurse that he accosted, and he says, and his pulse rate never went above 85.
Yeah.
That's impossible, physiologically impossible. You can't attack someone and rip out their eye and their tongue and your pulse not get over 85. That's impossible.
I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you what the average pulse rate is when attacking someone.
Well, not even that. So you're fighting with someone.
Yeah.
You're fighting with someone.
Oh,
That's what you'd have to do.
I guess it would be the only way is like if they were like lying quietly and not moving. And
if the person had said, yeah, okay, rip that shit out of me, right? Or rip that out of me. Why am I swearing? Whip that out of me, right? Like I find that impossible, unless this nurse was like passed out, or that's my one main issue. That's really what I'll have.
And I guess they tried to just have that pulse rate thing just to like show like how character development for how like psychologically superior Lecter was. He can control his pulse rate while doing terrible things.
Yeah, well, like it may not be possible, but within the scope of the movie, I believed it. I think it's because I wanted to believe it because it was so cool.
Yeah, it never popped into my head. Like when they say that, I was never like, oh, that's BS. But what John's saying is making sense.
No, it totally makes sense. Like he might be able to stay calm because it's it's nothing to him. But with the attacking portion, you're totally right. I just believed it because he's Hannibal Lecter, and I wanted to believe it. So I don't know. It didn't bother me that much. It's even if it did bother me, it's a minor issue. It's one line. So.
And here's another thing that bothered me, and I'm sorry, John, I'm going to bring up more than one issue with the film here. Buffalo Bill does not let Clarice into that house. When he says, I can get a card for you, he says, wait here at the door. I'll get a card and I'll bring it back to the door. There's no way he lets her into that house.
Okay, I'm reviewing this in my mind. That seems okay. However, he did try closing the door on her.
And she did stick her hand out.
Yes. So she wasn't going away without finding out where the Lippmans went.
Yeah.
So I don't see, because he only let her into the very front of the door. He didn't say come all the way in. He let her in the front, and then he walked away, and she further walked in. Right? So he's like, hey, I'll go get that card. And when you say to someone, hey, I'll go get this, or look for it, usually that implies you stay here, I'll go get this.
I just feel that he's got a woman trapped in his basement. He is not letting her walk in that house. I just really, so that irked me. And when it happened, when we're reviewing it last night, I'm like, this bugs me.
Okay. She's FBI and she can read people well. He would know that. So if he's okay, well, go ahead. Even if she couldn't read people well, if he's acting like he needs to get her the hell out of there immediately, she's going to know something's up. And because of the connection she has, he's going to say at least, I have a better chance if I just
try and play it cool.
Exactly.
Yeah, I could see that, and I hear what you're saying there, Ethan, because you want to play it cool. Like, the more standoffish she is, the more suspicious that she's going to get. But even just the chance of letting her in, and then she hears the woman screaming or something like that,
Yeah, but we already knew that you couldn't hear her screaming. All the layers and all the sounds that were down, like that's a non-issue. That he wasn't concerned about sound at all. He wouldn't open the front door if that was a problem. Remember how when she hit the doorbell, that giant buzzer, right down there, like that place there's no way.
If you're gonna have a giant buzzer like that put in, you're gonna get the place soundproofed. Or something like that.
You know what I mean? Like he has it down there because he can't hear anything when he's up there.
And then the other thing that kind of bugged me, but it kind of didn't. I don't know. I'd like to just see where you guys are at with this. Clarice realizes it's Buffalo Bill. The kind of like he runs off into the house. She's chasing. She discovers the pit, finds the woman down there, but at no point ever asks her, is there only one man or is there multiple people here? Don't you think that would have been a relevant question to ask there? But then having said that, to be the devil's advocate, they had a profile that this guy works alone. He's one man, but that would have been a question that you would ask, would you not?
No, I don't think so in that situation. Only because, especially in that era where serial killers, like this movie influenced a bunch of serial killer movies, but like it just did a lot, right? So, in that era, it was an anomaly for two. There have been serial killers that work together, right? But I think it's like one or two that have done that in the United States. I think there's some across that have done more. However, like they had the profile and how the other scenes that they'd examined, they only ever got an indication that it was one person involved, right? They said this the whole time, so like she wouldn't even think of this other person. And even talking to Hannibal Lecter, he only ever said one person, right? And she, for whatever reason, probably because of his intelligence, she trusted him.
Yeah.
So I don't have an issue with that at all.
And then the other thing I was thinking too is like it was a panic situation. Of course, hindsight's always 20/20, but I just thought like, wouldn't she want to know this? But what you're saying makes sense, and it led to another fantastic scene, one of the greatest in cinematic history, where she's it's pitch black and she's looking around and he's got the night vision goggles on. How cool was that?
That was a great scene. That was a really good scene.
But then it gets ruined.
It adds the tension.
But then it gets ruined a little bit at the end. He shoots her. Oh, sorry, she shoots him. And one of her stray bullets hits the barricade that's blocking the window and lets all the light in. I thought that was a little cheesy.
Why?
Well, because it was just like so ridiculous that it's just like one of her lucky shots knocks this board off and then light flows in and you can perfectly see again.
You don't know the layout. How do you know it was lucky?
Well, she didn't mean to shoot it. So that's the definition of lucky,
Okay,
where something good happens when you don't mean to do it.
I didn't find that cheesy at all.
No?
I mean, like, what's the after effect? Like, she shoots him, and she's like, and it's gonna be her crawling around on the floor for like ever, and then finding a light and doing all
No,
this
and
stuff.
and
Like,
you're right, but I would have think that would have been more realistic.
Okay, I also don't have a problem with that. So your definition of lucky is it hitting the window. I think
and then letting all the light in so that she could see again.
Yeah, but I think her definition of lucky is that bullet hits him. Right, so
no, for sure. Yeah, she was lucky to shoot him, and then also lucky that one of the bullets knocks the protective.
But
barrier.
you know what I mean? Like I don't think it. So yeah, it was an unintended shot. That's not what she was aiming for. I think she would prefer that all her bullets went into the bad guy. So that's all I'm trying to say. I don't think it's. I just wouldn't describe it as lucky because in her mind she wants him dead.
No,
she
for
doesn't
sure.
care about how much light she can see.
Okay.
Right, that's not something that she was thinking about. Oh, I wish I could shoot out a window.
No, she wasn't trying to do it.
No, that's what I mean. Though,
I just
right?
thought it was ridiculous that it happened.
Well, I don't really have an issue with it, only in the sense that I don't care.
No, fair.
Right? Like
Okay.
it didn't really matter to me one way or another, right? So it would have been different if she's like shot him and it's like, and then looking around and then going, oh, I really wish I could see something, and then shot the window. Then I'd be like, okay, what? You can't see something. You do one bullet shot and the light comes in.
Yeah.
But in a spray of bullets, when bullets are flying everywhere and he's standing in front of a window, I don't have a problem.
Okay,
with
so
it.
you found it reasonable. I'm guessing Ethan, you found it reasonable as well.
Yeah. Kyle, I'm surprised with how nitpicky you're being. You didn't notice that there were shadows when she's running around in the pitch black.
That there were shadows. No, I didn't see the shadows.
There's shadows.
So like when he's watching through the night vision.
Yeah, you see shadows.
Oh.
That's a continuity error.
Okay, no, I didn't see that.
That's like the only issue, and it's minor. In this whole movie.
Okay. No, I didn't notice that at all. Like to me, it felt like she was in the absolute pitch black. But I guess since there were shadows, she wasn't.
Well, yeah, it's not a big deal, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like I only noticed it because I watched it in a video once.
Okay.
Right? But it's just like it was funny.
Interesting. Very, very cool. Yeah, and you know what? Because this movie is such a classic, there are going to be people kind of like going through each scene and nitpicking and like trying to find out every little thing, right? But that's when I didn't pick up on it. I probably would have never picked up on it if you didn't bring it up there. But that's interesting.
I'm actually curious about the science about that. So, infrared goggles, or the goggles that he has, it just amplifies ambient light.
Okay.
So whatever light happens to be in the room, it just amplifies it.
Okay.
So if there's amplifying some sort of light and it can see gradations of light within the goggles, wouldn't she cast a shadow?
Buddy.
So I don't
that's
like I don't
above
know.
my head. I don't have an answer for you.
I don't know either. But it's like I just think because that's how they operate,
Yeah.
right? So
Nah,
I don't know.
I got nothing.
I don't know.
But even with these minor small things, I wanted to bring up and just see where you guys stood. This is obviously a classic. This is a movie that I love. And to be honest, I love the sequel. This is a great franchise, so maybe we'll have to do more of these films later on for the podcast. I don't know if that's something you're interested in.
I only like this one.
All right. This might be the only one of the Silence of the Lambs franchise.
Well, it depends, right? So
about.
if our, like, you know, we are motivated by our listeners, right? So
Yeah,
if they want us to dissect a movie, or they enjoy us when we do dissect a movie, I'll watch and review any movie they want us to watch and review. I really don't have a problem with it. Even Aliens 3, I really don't have a problem with it, because this is what we like to do. So it's not like it would be putting any hardship on me.
No, for sure. But now, Ethan, are you the same way? Is this the only one you liked in the series, or were you into Hannibal? Were you into Red Dragon, or?
I liked Red Dragon.
Yeah.
It didn't go in expecting Silence of the Lambs, and I didn't get it. I went in neutral, and I was happy with what I got. I like Ralph Fiennes. I like Anthony Hopkins. I like Edward Norton. And I enjoyed it. It was fun.
Yeah. No, and I think that sums it up well. I'm kind of sitting in the same spot, but it's been years since I've seen that movie as well, right? So I would need to refresh my memory. We'd have to watch it again for me to give a really true impression of how I feel.
Yeah, and I read the books, right? So I liked the Red Dragon book. It was good. The Tooth Fairy was a cool character. But other than that, like, for movie wise, we talked about it before, like Manhunter, which was based on the Red Dragon novel a while ago. That was okay. It was pretty good. But yeah, this one, Silence of the Lambs captured the power of Anthony Hopkins' character playing Hannibal Lecter within 16 minutes, and it did it phenomenally. And all the other movies I found after that were trying to chase that. So for me,
they couldn't catch the lightning in a bottle again.
No, they couldn't catch that. This was like a perfect confluence of all these amazing ideas and well-written dialogue, well-written plot progression, and it just boom. It was dynamite. So everything after that, I was like, I watched it hoping to be impressed or hoping to love it. It just never happened, and that could be just me. If other people like it, you like what you like, right?
Yeah,
me,
and
I didn't like it.
As we talked about before, I'm highly influenced by the critics and what they see. They change my expectations, and for you, it might be these books. You read these books, you love it, and sometimes the movie doesn't live up to it.
No, that's not what I meant. I meant this movie standalone, Silence of the Lambs, was amazing, right? I read the books and I enjoyed the books, but I know books and movies are different. And so I never really confused the two. What I meant was that Silence of the Lambs, the movie itself, was so phenomenally well done and well put together. It'd be almost impossible to meet that standard again. Now, me going to watch those other movies, I was hoping for those standards to be met, but they weren't. And because of that, they weren't nearly as good as this one was.
Fair
in
enough.
my mind.
Fair enough.
So, and then because of that, I already know enough about the characters. I don't care about... I've never been that guy that's like, okay, well, Hannibal's like this, but why? And I need to know about how he grew up in his teenage years, or I could care less. I like the Hannibal that I saw in that scene. He was my favorite, and I like the mystery involved. Mystery equals fear, so I enjoy that.
Very cool. Very well said. Well, Ethan, we really appreciate you being here. Anything else to add, buddy?
Nope, don't have anything.
John, anything else to add?
Not in terms of this movie. No.
Well, please check out our Facebook page and follow us on both Twitter and Instagram at Damned Movies. We want to hear what you thought of today's podcast and any suggestions you have, especially in terms of what movies you'd like us to discuss next. Send us an email to moviesofthedamned@gmail.com. Please also check out John's full-length novels. His first two novels, Dollhouse and The Tracker, are Amazon bestsellers, and his new novella, Balance, is also available on Amazon. For further details on John's other published works, please visit his blog, johnhuntfiction.wordpress.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, and if you guys have a few seconds and whatever platform you're listening to us on, if you happen to enjoy us, please leave a rating. And it really helps with other people searching for this type of content. And secondly, if you happen to read my books, also please leave a rating on whatever device or whatever you happen to be reading it on. Dollhouse, my first book, just reached number 1 in Canada on Amazon for horror fiction, and it stayed up there for a couple days, and I'm really proud of that. And just want to thank you guys all for your support. So have a great week. Have a good time, everyone.